Hey guys, Aaron here with Functional Aesthetics, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So today I'm going to do my due diligence. I know it's been done many times in the past, but I'm going to go over some lifting fundamentals for the basic lifts. So squat, bench press, deadlift, and row. And also some pull-up exercises. I might get to some of these in a later video. But we're going to start off with squats. And I'm going to give you my take on this and kind of how I teach this to my clients. So starting off, we're going to look over force couples in the body and the different muscles involved when you're doing a squat. So I'm going to draw my little stick man here. Alright, so we have a little stick guy there, and we're going to draw a little circle up here for the head, circle here for the hips, and a little circle here for the knees. So force couples acting on the hips here are going to be your erector spinae muscles in the back, and those are going to help to pull up on the pelvis in the back. You have the hip flexor muscles in the front, which pull down on the pelvis in the front. Then you have pulling up from there the abdominal muscles on top of that. And then opposing the action of the erector spinae muscles in the back, you have your glutes that pull down. So the reason I'm talking about this is because when you perform various different lifts, if you have inflexibility, tight muscles in certain areas, it's going to affect your ability to get into a proper squat position and to not only effectively engage the muscles you're trying to work, which ultimately will lead to greater muscle growth and increased strength gains, and also to avoid getting injuries later on down the road because you've been overstressing certain muscles because other muscles were not engaging because your alignment was improper. So, next thing we want to look at is the muscles involved in when you're doing the squat. So, if you look at a squat here, got the head here, say he's going down in the squat, he's got his legs kind of bent like this, and got his arms up holding the bar. So you can see here that he's got to bend the knees. We'll start out down at the calves here. So as he's going down, if the calf muscles are not flexible enough, it's going to limit the mobility or the range of motion in the ankles down here. So instead of being able to get down all the way and effectively use the muscles up in the glutes here, because initially it's just that the ankle's going there, right? So as he's going down, if there's lack of mobility there, he's going to limit how far he can go down. Additionally, if the hamstring muscles right here and the glutes on the backside, if those are tight, it's also going to limit how far down you can go into that squat. So, and then obviously, if the quadricep muscles in the top here are tight, it's going to predispose you for injury, make them more brittle, less stretching ability to absorb the strain eccentrically as they're stretching like a rubber band on the way down. And then, of course, your lower back here has to be able to properly absorb the force, so making sure that your back is in a proper position to do that. Also, the upper back, even though it's far removed from the legs, the upper back also plays a role in the in your ability to squat. So if you have, and this is an exaggeration, but if you have a rounded forward posture like this, the shoulders stooping forward, your chest is not going to be able to elevate, you're not going to be able to get as much oxygen, you're not going to be able to generate as much intrathoracic pressure in there when you suck in a deep breath, and you're going to fatigue more quickly. It's also going to be putting more downward stress in here. It's going to put the angle of the load is going to be directed more downward this way rather than directed more balanced over the hips. So what's that going to cause you to do? It's going to cause you to start leaning forward, right? So not only are you not going to be able to get enough oxygen, so you're going to lose energy that way, you're also not going to put your hips down here in an ideal position because of the position of your shoulders. So you're going to have this rounded over back, and your center of gravity is going to tip forward, which is going to make it so that the pressure is way out over your knees and leading you to tip forward. So you're also going to not be activating your glutes in the back as well as you could be, because as we'll get into in a later section in here when we're going over the deadlift, as you're coming up out of a deadlift, and here's the legs here again, the feet, so if you're coming up out of the deadlift, if your butt starts coming up too fast before the bar reaches your knees, you know that your glutes are weak. So what happens here in the squat, if you're leaning forward and you're not able to activate your and your momentum's going forward there, it's going to automatically cause you to skip out on using the glutes in this exercise, and it's going to be all up in the quads. Now, the squat is predominantly a quad exercise, but you do use the glutes, and if you're leaving that on the table, you're going to have a hard time getting up out of the bottom portion of the squat. And over time, you're going to be putting more stress on your knees in the front from that leaning forward posture. So what do we want to do, and what do we want to make sure that we have prior to performing a squat to make sure that we're doing the squat correctly? And so this is where some mobility and stretching exercises come into play, and also some practice getting into the proper squat position, which I'll go into coming up here. So the first place we want to focus on is the calves, making sure you have, and your ankles, making sure you have proper mobility in the ankle region there. Okay, so we're going to start off with a basic calf stretch here to help starting to build up that flexibility. Now, if you have really tight calves, you might want to foam roll your calves or massage them first prior to stretching, because that will help loosen up the tissues and make them more receptive to the stretch. So we're going to start like this. Get in that stretch position like this. And we've all seen this, probably done this in grade school. And you need to do the other one. And you want to do both the gastrocnemius on the outside and then also the soleus, because the gastrocnemius calf muscle crosses the knee joint. So in order to stretch it, you want to lock your knee out, because the action of the knee is going to affect that muscle. The soleus, on the other hand, lies underneath the gastrocnemius and does not cross the knee joint, and so you do not need to to activate that, you want to bend your knee and also try to touch your heel to the ground. All right, so following that up, now we want to work on stretching out the hamstrings. Okay, so moving on up that chain, the next exercise that we want to do is a hamstring stretch. So there's a couple different ways to do this to hit the different heads of the hamstrings. So first, what we're going to do is a traditional hamstring stretch, where you stick your heel out, your foot out in front of you, with your heel touching the ground and your toes pointing up towards your knee. So you should feel tightness in the anterior tibialis in the front of your shin here. So you're going to do that, and then from there you're going to bend your other knee to help you sit back into that hamstring stretch. And you can do it with your knee straight, and then also as you get down, bend it a little more, and it'll help get up a little bit higher, close to where the butt ties in to the hamstring, or the hamstring ties into the butt muscle. So you can hit both of those. Now, after doing that, you want to hit the biceps femoris muscle, which runs along the outside of your leg, on the back of your leg there. So since that muscle helps to a little bit in external rotation as well as knee flexion, in order to stretch it, we want to cross the one leg over and then come down like this. And if you rotate your torso away, you'll actually get a better stretch there as well. But that'll hit that outside head there. So now we stretch the hamstrings, we stretch the calves to make sure those are nice and mobile. Now we want to move on and practice stretching the quadriceps, of course, in the front, and then work on some exercises for upper body, increase mobility there before we actually go ahead and do our squat. All right, so one calf stretch that I forgot to include in here, and this will hit it from a little bit different angle, is to do a low lunge, and you come up on the ball of your foot, and resting your weight on there can not only help stretch the hamstrings further, it's kind of a combination hamstring and calf stretch. So you get a really deep stretch in the calves by having the weight of your body resting on top of it while your foot is in that dorsiflex position. Okay, so now that we've been working up the posterior chain here for the calves, the hamstrings, now we want to do something, a yoga pose that's going to kind of address all those areas of concern. So it's going to address the lower back, it's going to address the glutes and the hamstrings, primarily hamstrings, calves, also the thoracic spine up here to help properly align the shoulder girdle and keep those the scapula depressed. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the downward dog pose. So to do this pose, you're going to stack your hips over your knees, then you're going to stack your shoulders over your hands. And from there, you're going to move your hand out one hand length so that the palm of your hand ends up, or the heel of your hand ends up where your fingertips were. So just like that. Then from there, you're going to rock back, raise your butt up in the air, and you're going to point your head down at the ground. You want to try to touch your heels to the ground in the back. You're going to feel a deep stretch in your hamstrings and your calves. And then what you want to do is you want to try to lock your elbows out and depress your shoulder blades. So keeping your upper back, bring those shoulder blades down and back. So roll your shoulders down and back from this position. You're going to exhale, then inhale into the position. And you can rock back and forth as well to hit the outsides of the calf muscles and the hamstrings. So, and give that a try. What you're going to feel is you're going to feel that shoulder. If you have issues with rounded forward shoulders and stuff, that's probably going to be pretty difficult to get into that position. You're going to feel a lot of tension in your upper back. Also, it's going to help stretch out those hamstrings, the calves like I talked about. So kind of combining everything that we've been talking about all in one with that pose. Now, we don't want to leave out the front side of the body, so obviously we're going to stretch out our quadriceps coming up. All right, so our next exercise is a quadricep stretch. So you've seen this all the time, again in like gym class when you're in grade school, etc., junior high. So what you're going to do, foot behind you. Now a little different variation of this is you want to keep your hips posteriorly rotated or tuck your butt under. That'll increase the stretch in the quadricep muscle, but in that position it might kind of limit your breathing a little bit. So what you want to do is start out one hand over your head, taking a deep breath while you're in lumbar extension, and then exhale as you rotate your butt under. And breathe in and out a couple times while you hold it in that posteriorly rotated position. When you feel like you need to breathe a little bit more, relax a little bit. Deep breath in. And do that a couple times. Now, that hits mainly straight down the middle, rectus femoris. If you want to hit more vastus lateralis over here, and also that IT band a little bit, what you can do is grab with the opposite hand on the other side, pull your foot across the body, and then try to straighten your leg out. You should feel a pretty good stretch on the outside of the knee here, provided you are tight in that area. So finish up there with that quadricep stretch. Now we're going to go into the upper body movements to help you perform your squat. Okay, so I realized I got a little bit ahead of myself there. Before going into the upper body exercises, we're going to just show you the general breakdown for a proper squat. And then we're going to do the upper body exercises. Then we're going to do an overhead squat, which is going to really force you to correct or improve your thoracic mobility and your posture in the upper back region, which will then help you perform a back squat. So what we're going to do here is first, feet about shoulder width apart. And first thing you're going to do, put hands behind your head, and you're going to sit back. And you want to, in the past, people thought that it was really bad to have your knees come out, or your knees come out over your toes. But recent research has shown that that is not entirely the case. However, depending on what you're trying to emphasize, if you have your knees out over your toes a little bit more, it's going to hit more of this, the quadricep muscle in the middle here, this teardrop one right here, the medialis muscle. And then if you sit further back, you're going to get more glute activation. So that's what we're going to do here. So the idea is to sit back, first you want to tip the hips forward a little bit, and that's going to help lock the facet joints in your lower back for greater stability. They're going to basically, almost like a arch in a bridge, right? They're going to brace up against each other. And so then we're going to squat down, taking a deep breath, squat down, and your butt should be arching out there. You should be have your weight directed over the middle of your feet, and then exhale as you come out of that. So now, as you might have noticed, I was leaning a little bit forward there from the hips. Now, a little bit of that is okay. Obviously, you can't go perfectly down, straight up and down. You'd fall over backwards. But if you have a lot of immobility in your thoracic region, your upper back here, it's going to be hard for you to get up straight, like I mentioned in the diagram here earlier, and so you're going to start tipping forward. So following this, now we're going to show what we're going to do to improve that thoracic mobility a little bit, to help you get a better squat and load the bar properly over your spine. Oh, before we get into the upper back mobility exercises, one thing I'd like to add is if when you're performing a squat and you squat down to parallel, you should feel, the first thing you should feel as you're coming out of that, you should feel your glutes start to activate, right, or your butt right here. If you don't feel that, and you're leaning forward too far, that means that your glutes aren't strong enough to handle that weight, and so you're putting all the emphasis on the quads, and you're missing out on that range of motion at the bottom there. So what you need to do then there is obviously just lighten up the load until you can perform the exercise properly, and then begin adding weight. Because you're not going to do yourself any favors in the long run if you're doing the exercise wrong, and then you have to come back later because of an injury or because you plateaued and can't get any stronger for your powerlifting or whatever. And then you have to come back and start out with the basics again, which is really depressing. So why not start out with it right to begin with, and then hopefully you won't have to go backtrack and redo all that hard work that you've done. Okay, so now we'll get into the upper body exercises. Okay, so the first exercise we're going to do is a Y stretch. So what you're going to do is you're going to stand feet shoulder width apart. You're going to get your hips in a neutral alignment here. Then you're going to rotate your hands out to the side so your thumbs are pointing out. But first, before you do that, you're going to shrug your shoulders up, bring them back. So it's going to be up, down, and then from that position, rotate your hands out like so. And what this does is help to not only help stretch the chest muscles here if you're tight there, it also helps to put the shoulder girdle in a proper position and helps to squeeze the shoulder blades together or retract them, activating those rhomboids in the back. So say if you're doing a barbell squat, you got your arms like this, you want to pop your chest up, right? Shoulders down and back, and squeeze your shoulder blades together to really brace that weight. going to allow you to get lots of oxygen in here. It's going to provide a nice stable shelf for that bar to sit on. And you come out of it like that. So that's why we're going to do that one. Also, if you are really tight in the chest here, it might do some chest stretches first, then the Y stretch to activate that. And then following this, we're going to do a straight arm raise on the wall here, which is going to really help to increase the mobility of that shoulder girdle. It looks like a really simple exercise, but if you do have alignment issues in your upper back shoulder region, it's going to be really difficult to do. Even though it doesn't look all that hard, I know for me, I am not perfect entirely in my upper back or anything like that, so I definitely have issues with it, but you can really feel your rhomboids in your upper back there squeezing together and feel your shoulder popping and stuff to really get that joint in the proper location. So what we're going to do, and since the ceiling isn't high enough here, I'm going to keep my feet a little bit away from the wall, but the closer you keep your feet to the wall, the harder this exercise gets. So in the beginning, you might want to keep your feet out from the wall a little bit, bend your knees, and do it like that, and then progressively bring your heels closer and closer to the wall until you can raise your arms all the way up overhead without touching the wall. So how we're going to do this is we're going to bend the knees, and the position of your hips, you want your hips to be in a posteriorly rotated position, so keep that back flat to the wall. Don't let it arch, because then you're going to compensate by arching your lower back to get your shoulders against the wall, and that defeats the purpose. So posteriorly rotate the hips, and then at the bottom here, bring your head against the wall, tuck your chin in. So you got yourself in a neutral alignment there. Taking a deep breath as you raise your hands over your head. And now you want to keep your elbows and your forearms in, as well as your hands, in contact with the wall the entire time. I'm taking my watch off so I don't scratch up the wall here. So externally rotate. Deep breath as you're coming up. Keep that lower back in contact with the wall. Keep your chin tucked, head in contact with the wall. Forearms, elbows, hands. Keep going, keep breathing all the way up. Good. And see, I'm starting to come away from the wall, so that's my limit right there. Ideally, you want to be able to get your hands all the way up over your head like that. So I definitely have some stuff to work on. Some things that can help with that, since the lat muscles, in addition to the chest muscles, also help to internally rotate the shoulders. And if these are tight, you're also going to have a hard time raising your arm over your head. So you want to do some lat stretches as well. Do some foam rolling for the lats, follow with some mobility exercises, so stretching for those lats. Stretch the chest out, do some pendulum swings. That's all going to help with getting your arms up over your head like that. And so then when you do any exercises like rows, squats like that, you're going to have those shoulder blades in the proper position, which is going to help you activate the muscles properly. For the purpose of the squat, we're not really exercising the rhomboids, but it's going to help you keep your shoulders in that proper proper position. Excuse me. Alright guys, so we're going to be doing an overhead squat now. This bar is a little bit too short for that purpose, but since I don't have any weights on it or anything like that, it will suffice for now. So, overhead squat, going to, and you're going to understand why that mobility against the wall was important when we get into this here. So, we're going to do overhead squat here, and so the idea is you want to really lock out those shoulders like this, right? Retract the shoulders. Get in that position. You see how my butt sticks out first? And so that weight is stacked right over the hips. If you try to keep the bar out here, as you go down, it's going to get harder and harder and you're going to tip forward. Which, with a light bar like this, is not too significant because my shoulders can handle it. But You want this to be a leg exercise, not a shoulder exercise. So what you're going to do, take a deep breath, get those shoulders back, come down to the bottom here, and you can just hold this. Now if you have more weight on it, first, before you try to start adding weight, just practice the movement, getting all the way down to the bottom, up like that. So, we'll show it from the side here. So up over the head, squatting down. Really feel a good stretch in that coracobrachialis muscle here. Feel those traps retracting here, squeezing together the rhomboids, upper traps as well. Helps improve with that. Now, to finish off this section on the squat, I'm going to show you a exercise to help warm up hamstring. Great hip warming up exercise that you can try to do before doing your squats. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to squat down, get in that good squat position, and then instead of straightening your leg, this time you do want to rock forward. So what you're going to do from this position, now you're going to rock forward, but don't come up this way. You're going to raise your butt instead. Squat, squat, squat like that. And that helps to really warm up both the hamstrings and the quads. So give that a try. I'm going to also show you some exercises to help with those hip flexors, hip side to side a little bit too here. Okay, so our next exercise is to help get that inner thigh portion warmed up in addition to the quads, glutes as well. It's kind of all incorporated together. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do a walking lunge. So we're going to lunge out. Then from there we're going to rotate back this way. I actually learned this one from Fitness Culture's channel. And I really liked it. I had some variations of this myself, but I like how it's kind of moving in a forward direction as well. So kind of mimicking what you'd be doing in athletic endeavors. So you lunge forward, rotate back, lunge forward, rotate back. So you're stretching out inner groin, hamstrings, whole hip area here. Then you're going to lunge forward the other way, forward, rotate back, lunge forward, rotate back, like that. And then you can follow it up with some more hip stretching exercises as well. One other thing I want to add here too is a dynamic calf stretch. So you're stretching like this, and then just kind of basically walk and lean into each one. So you're not only just stretching it, but you're also warming it up. So this is something that you'd want to do after you had done your regular calf stretching. Or do it a little bit before, then do the calf stretch, and then try it again after you've done that. Alright guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope that you found some information that will be useful to you in your own workouts, help you prevent injury, help you perform the exercises better so you get more benefits from them. If you like this video, be sure to like it. Leave your comments in the section below. If you'd like to see more information like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Functional Aesthetics EC. When you do, hit that bell icon so you don't miss a video when they come out in the future. And we'll see you all later for more health and fitness related information. Thanks guys for watching.